Hey, what's up everyone, and welcome to my review of Ghost Frequency. I'll try to keep this as spoiler-free as possible, but some light spoilers can probably be expected given that it's a review of the game. If you'd like to check out my playthrough of the game, there is a link in the description below and it'll take you right there. That way you can check it out before any potential spoilers do happen, or after if you're interested in just seeing the gameplay in its entirety. If you're not familiar with this game yet, Ghost Frequency is a first-person horror game developed by Pit Games, and it was released on May 26, 2025. In my playthrough video, I wrongly assumed that development studio that handled this game also developed the Broken Lore series of games. I later found out that to not be true, but given that the Broken Lore games were all over the title screen of this game, there's at least some association there, so I'm not really sure what that is. But let's go ahead and get into the scores. Okay, so first thing, let's go ahead and talk about the audio design of the game. I thought that overall the audio design of the game wasn't bad. The things that I liked about it, there were some pretty well crafted and well utilized ambient audio effects that really kind of added to the creepiness of the scene that you were in. And there were more than a few occasions where they actually did have a soundtrack playing. It wasn't like over the top or crazy or anything like that, but it was, you know, it added kind of an ominous feel to the scenes that it was a part of. And I actually did like that a lot. The issues that I had with the audio in the game were, I mean, pretty much straight from the beginning. The opening intro video of the game had a voiceover that, and I don't know for sure. It could be that this was an actual real person's voice, but to me, it sounded like it was kind of one of those cheap text-to-speech generators that they were using for narration, which came off really flat and just a little strange. During some of the paranormal investigation portions of the game, there were elements that were just really high-pitched and kind of grating to listen to. And those happened pretty frequently during that part of the game. And then the last part of the game also had this, I don't know if you would call it a soundtrack, but it was very kind of like a loud, droning, grating audio that it just kept playing on a loop. And admittedly, the last part of the game, there was some confusion on my part on what I was supposed to be doing or where I was supposed to go. And that kind of kept me in that part of the game for longer than maybe some other people will experience. But for me, the fact that it was just this looping, loud, grating audio, and I was stuck there for an extended period of time, it really started to like just bother my ears after a while. So that those elements that just were really kind of tough to listen to brought the audio design score down to a 7 for me. Moving on to the visual design of the game. I'm pretty sure that there were a lot of pre-built assets used in the development of this game, but I'm not going to hold that against the developer. It doesn't bother me as much as it bothers a lot of other people. I understand that, especially when you're kind of a smaller developer, using pre-built assets can kind of give you a head start or a leg up on the development process, so you don't have to spend so much time actually 3D modeling a bunch of stuff. It really helps with that quite a bit, and it doesn't bother me. But I thought I probably should mention it just because, you know, some people do actually not like that. Overall, though, the visual quality of the game was pretty decent. The ghosts looked pretty creepy and very interesting at times, and some of the effects that they used were pretty well implemented. I don't want to go too far into it, but you know, there was certain parts during, you know, when you're looking through the thermal vision of a camera, and there were certain elements that were playing there that were really cool. So that wasn't so bad. The huge downside for me were instances like the investigation tools that you were using. They looked pretty bad. There were certain items that were just like low resolution. They looked flat. It almost looks like they had just like a JPEG image that they stretched over the model of where the screen was. It just came off as pretty cheap. I didn't want to hold it against the game too much for that. That was just one of the things that kind of ruined the visual experience for me. Otherwise, though, it was pretty good. So I gave it an 8. So let's talk about the atmosphere of the game. It wasn't bad for most of the game. I thought that the parts that were good were sufficiently tense and spooky, and it did everything that it needed to when it needed to. However, when I previously mentioned the bad audio and visual elements, it did do a lot to kind of pull me out of the experience. Anytime I had to, utilize the tools and the audio was just screeching in my ear, or you had to keep interacting with the phone tool, which was that flat stretched JPEG image, it did ruin the experience a little bit. So I went ahead and dropped this score down to a 7. Alright, let's go ahead and talk about the gameplay experience. In the first half of the game, the gameplay was actually pretty good, I think. I found that the investigation elements were pretty fun, and the instances where you rely on seeing through the video camera in an otherwise pitch darkness, and then having to deal with it as a mechanic when the battery ran out of the camera, I thought that was all pretty great. The second half of the game is where I have an issue with how gameplay was implemented. It became too repetitive and eventually became annoying. The mechanics that were interesting in the first part of the game were no longer being used in the second part. And the new mechanics that they introduced were kind of inconsistent. There was a part where you had to try to defend yourself against the ghost using a flash, and I found that to not work consistently. Sometimes it would work, sometimes it wouldn't. Sometimes the ghost would get you even though you had just used the defense mechanism. That being inconsistent was not very good. And it didn't help much that none of the mechanics were really explained all that well. Like, what was I supposed to be doing in the second half? I obviously eventually figured it out through trial and error, but it was not a fun part of the game to have to keep redoing. So that really kind of ruined the gameplay experience. So since I really only thought that like half of the game had good gameplay, I felt compelled to rate this as a 5. Moving on to the story of the game, there's not too much to really talk about here. It was a pretty simple premise. Your friends went missing during a ghost investigation, and you are trying to find out what happened to them. I even really liked the end, what they did with it. But what I really had an issue with was it felt like they had a starting point to the story and an end point to the story, but everything else in the middle felt like it was kind of lacking in build-up, in development, and it felt rushed. It really seemed like the developers either got bored telling their own story or just didn't know what to do with it and kind of abruptly ended it. So for that reason, I gave the story a 6. Alright, so the length of the game. For me, this game clocked in around 48 minutes, and I think that a lot of, like, some time at least would have been shaved off if I wasn't as lost or confused at the end of the game. So it felt pretty short, which is, I mean, it's normally fine. I don't really mind short games, but it also felt rushed and unfinished. And that is kind of a pretty negative aspect to a short game. It almost felt as if this could have been a demo for a much longer game, which I would love to play that. If this was just a short, like, teaser experience for a longer, more fleshed out, developed game, I think that would have been the way to go. That would have been really good. Right now, though, the game is priced in around $5 on Steam, which is not a bad price generally, but for a game that felt like it was kind of only half a game, I think that some people would consider that it wasn't even worth the $5 that they're asking for it. You could probably get it on sale for like $1 or something, during Halloween sales or whatever. If you feel compelled to do that, you can. I just really felt like, for price versus quality versus length, this one had me scoring it as a 5. So that brings me to my final score and kind of final thoughts of the game. Averaging up all of the previous scores, it came in at a 6.3 out of 10, which is, it's not very high for a game. It's not that it was an awful experience or anything. I don't think that anybody who plays this game or winds up buying it on sale is going to come away from their experience absolutely hating it. It just definitely felt like it was a game that you could, instead of buying and playing it yourself, you could easily just watch a playthrough video of it and be more than content with that experience as well. It just really felt like if this had just been a demo for a longer game, they could have really had something here. If they had spent the time to really develop the story, build, you know, a lot of the tension that was required to go from part A to part B of the game, they could have really had something that they could probably have charged more money for, and it would have been a more worthwhile experience. But given that the state that it was in, it just felt like the game decided it just wanted to end. The developers were just like, you know what? I think we just want to move on to something else. We want to be done with this. And then they just fast-tracked the ending, and it just felt really off. So those are my final thoughts on the game. People may come away with it with a different impression, which is totally fine. But that's just kind of how I feel. All right, well, that is it for the video today, guys. I hope you guys have enjoyed watching. Please consider subscribing to my channel and liking this video if you want to let me know that I'm doing a good job. But that all said, we're going to end it there. Thank you for watching and staying tuned, and I will catch you in the next video. See you later.